Protect the environment. All right, this is Norris Teaches Science today. Another edition of my biology videos, and this is starring Miss Norris. And today I present to you Biodiversity Lost. So we're going to talk about how biodiversity in the world and on Earth is being lost and the factors that factor into it. So that by the end of this video, you should be able to say, I can explain how humans affect the environment. So let's get into this. What is biodiversity lost? Well, first off, need to know what biodiversity is. We can break down the word. Bio means life, diversity means many of it. So it's a variety of life within an area. You can talk about the biodiversity of localized, or you can talk about biodiversity in the whole Earth. And how are we losing it? There's many ways we're losing it, and we're going to talk about a few of these. But you got habitat loss, like the habitats being destroyed, taken away from them, toxins in the environment, pollution, overexploitation or poaching means hunting too many of the animals, like overfishing, diseases, invasive species, and even changes into the food webs. If you change a food web, you start changing every animal in there. So I suggest you go back and look at the food web, the video at the beginning of this series on ecology, and you can actually see a lot about food webs, food chains, and all that jazz. So let's talk about toxins in a food web. We're only going to talk about some of those causes. If you want to know more about the ones I don't cover, you should just head over to Google, because you always should take advantage and actively learn yourself. So toxins in a food web. So you have a toxin, and as you increase in each trophic level, as you get higher and higher from producers to tertiary consumers, toxins will build up in each person. We call each organism. We call that biomagnification. Let me say that word again because I know I stuttered. Biomagnification or bioaccumulation. So if we look at the picture here, we have these things right here. This is an aquatic food system. We have these organisms here. These are called zooplankton. They have a little bit of toxin in them. Well, they get ate by a fish, and the fish is going to eat a lot of them, so the fish is going to have more toxins get into them. Then a bigger fish is going to eat the smaller fish, and it's going to have more toxins in it. It's going to eat a lot of the other fish. Then when humans consume those fish, they're going to get a lot of toxins in them because they're going to probably eat a lot of them. Now, killing off one species will cause another species die off. That's part of the food web thing. There's two examples we can talk about in the toxins in the food web. DDT, which was a pesticide, it messed with bald eagles, mainly their eggs and their chicks. We used the pesticides on the plants, but it accumulated in some of the bugs. Those bugs were ate by other organisms that got into the water system. The bald eagles ate the fish that had the toxins. So the fish got the toxins. The fish transferred the toxins to the bald eagles, and then there was a problem when they were having new babies, and it became a big problem. DDT is now outlawed in the United States. Another one we could look at is mercury. Pregnant women are told they should probably limit how much seafood they eat, mainly because mercury exists in the water system. And so fish and a lot of the shellfish will have a lot of mercury in them. And mercury, when a pregnant woman ingests it, some of that food goes down to the baby that's developing, and it can cause some birth defects. So that's why they usually don't, doctors don't suggest that they eat seafood or anything from the ocean. Invasive species, these are non-native species that are introduced to an ecosystem. They can be either introduced accidentally or they can be introduced purposely. They have no native predators, means that their population can keep increasing because nothing's going to hunt them or nothing's designed to hunt them and kill them. The thing is, it can cause native species to go extinct. A big example of invasive species are the pythons in the Everglades of Florida. You can see that in the pictures here. The bottom picture, those are all eggs from a python that was killed. And at the top, here's one of the rangers with a python that they're going to relocate or get rid of. Pythons are running rampant in the Florida Everglades. Florida also has other invasive species like the tegu. But invasive species don't have to be just animals; they can be plants as well. Where I live, we have an invasive species plant called kudzu, and so it's a vine that grows really rapidly, um, but it's invasive because there's nothing that really eats it, and so it just keeps growing, growing, growing. During the spring and summer months, we can see the flowers of it blooming on the vines and I usually see them on like what are they called? Power line poles on the side of the road. Now, human-induced climate change can actually cause biodiversity loss. Um, so if you don't remember climate change, human-induced climate change is build up greenhouse gases, mainly CO2, that are increasing the temperature. And we do have evidence for that, that this is happening. I don't really care what politics say. Their climate is changing; it always will, but this is changing at a different rate than normal climate change. Um, but evidence of some human-induced climate change are the melting of the ice caps, which is causing habitat loss, like polar bears. Um, we have seen Antarctica shrink in its size over the years. Even the Arctic's ice has been shrinking. There's been heat waves, um, extreme heat waves. You can even think back. This is 2020. The year of it seemed like the world was going to kill us. Uh, in January, we were talking about the fires in Australia. Um, and then you have rising sea levels. And if sea levels rise too much, some people are living in the areas that will be underwater soon, like in Florida and New York City. Even the coast of the state I live in could be affected by rising sea levels. Another problem that's causing biodiversity loss and um, is factored into some pollution is acid rain. This is when pollutants. Oh my gosh, let me repeat that. It's when pollutants like SO2, sulfur oxides, and nitric oxides, NOx. The X is there because it could be a 2, it could be a 3, it could be many letter numbers there. So we just do NOx, but they're nitric oxides. They're gases that mix it with water in the vapor in the atmosphere, and so it forms rain. Um, and then that rain falls down is very acidic. The gases the pollutants come from burning fossil fuels in factories and our cars. All of that goes in the atmosphere and mixes with the water and produces the acid rain. Some effects that we could get is acidification of lakes, means the pH level is dropped in lakes, and if the pH level drops in lakes, some of the animals could die out because they can't survive in that level of pH. If you don't know about pH, I definitely think you guys should go over and go to Google and look it up. This is something that you'll cover in like chemistry and physical science. Um, Acid rain can kill the algae in aquatic organisms. If they kill the algae, then there's not really oxygen being produced to the water, so you can get dead zones, or you can just kill the organisms themselves. You can remove nutrients from the soil. Nutrients removed from the soil means plants can't grow, and if plants can't grow, the herbivores don't have something to eat. Then the consumers don't have the omnivores and the carnivores don't have something to eat, and at some point, even the decomposers won't have stuff to eat, and the scavengers. It can dissolve toxic metals inside the soil, and then that stuff leaches down to the groundwater. And groundwater is one of our major sources of fresh water. So we wouldn't have fresh water that we can use to irrigate crops or drink or use in our daily lives. So acid rain can be a really big problem. What can you do? You can follow the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. And you can also have conservation, watching how much you use. You can also help make sure that people are following their right stuff, make sure you don't litter, you know, be cautious of the environment. That's what you can do. How are we fixing things? There are a couple stuff out there, acts and policies and groups that are trying to help out, making sure that we keep this planet so that we can still live. You have the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. They monitor different aspects of pollution. You also have CITES, which is the Convention for International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, making sure that you don't trade animals that should not be traded. They should be living in their normal habitat. You have the Endangered Species Act, and the Endangered Species Act not just protects the animal, but protects the land the animal would live in. You got the Clean Air Act, making sure that we don't pollute the air too much. We got the Clean Water Act, making sure we don't pollute the water enough. Um, there's other acts and laws out there, both domestically and internationally, that you should really go look up. There's so many out there. If I listed all of them, it would take maybe 100 slides because there we are trying to protect the environment, but protecting the environment, protecting species, protecting ecology does come down to each individual, and you can make an effect on all of this. So, become an active steward of the earth. This is Mr. Norris. I hope you learned something today, and I'm out for this video. Protect the environment.